Our next speaker is Liz Fekete. Liz is someone who has lectured, written and researched in depth for many years about questions of migration, security and racism across Europe. She's also the author of a new book, The Suitable Enemy, which I'm sure you can get from her at the end if you want to. And also she's the Executive Director of the Institute of Race Relations. Liz, over to you.
Who here today has heard of Alim Abdul Manan? Alim Abdul Manan was a migrant worker living in Athens. He was a migrant worker from Bangladesh. Last week he was murdered. Two men on a motorbike drew up and stabbed him to death in Athens. This happened after 3 days of anti-immigrant violence in Athens, where 100 Asian and Africans were hospitalised. I don't know if you know much about Athens, but there's no central mosque, and Muslims are forced to pray in garages, in basement mosques. A far-right group called Christianity in the last few months have been shutting the doors of those mosques and pouring petrol through them and setting them on fire. It's only a miracle nobody died in those attacks. If you haven't heard of Alim Abdul Manan, you would not be alone. This week I wrote an article for the IRR's Alternative News Service. We try to tell you the stories about what's happening in Europe that you don't get in the newspapers. I went through a lot of newspapers and not one of those newspapers mentioned his name. And this is my first point. This is how Islamophobia works. It's about stereotyping and dehumanising people. Everyone knows the name of Anjan Chowdhury because he's a convenient cartoon figure for the press. But no one knows the name of Alim Abdul Manan, who was just a poor migrant worker and a poor Muslim doing his best to survive in Athens. What worries me at the moment is I am seeing all around Europe that Islamophobia, racism, nationalism are all becoming mixed up together, and what a combusting force they are. In Hungary, far-right paramilitaries are going to rural areas and terrifying the Roma. And it's the same picture around Europe. Everyone is pointing the finger at the Muslim, suggesting that they pose a threat to national values, or the Roma, or the migrant worker. And it's convenient that it's happening at a time when there's a financial crisis, when the welfare state is being cut and our public services are being privatised. That's why Cameron gave his Munich speech when he attacked multiculturalism. And if you look, every single European centre-right party leader made the same speech in different capitals around Europe. And what we're seeing at the moment is that the centre-right parties are beginning to recognise that the only way that they can hold on to power is through electoral alliances with the extreme right. Sabine is right. Islamophobia existed well before September the 11th. But what we saw after the September the 11th was Islamophobia entered policy. It became structured. It became institutionalised racism against Muslims. Here we've seen it through the whole counter-extremism agenda. We've been living under emergency laws for over 10 years. And we've seen our whole criminal justice system change, more punitive, structured towards Muslims. Detention without charge, control orders, house arrest, stop and search, small little adjustments like this, huge changes. In the rest of Europe, the debate has focused more around visible Islam. So, in many European countries, Muslim women and girls are forbidden to wear the hijab to school or if they are teachers or civil servants. Sabine will tell you over half the German states forbid Muslim women from wearing the hijab. France and Belgium have banned full veil coverings. Of course, in other countries the debate has been around mosques and minarets. And in one country, Switzerland, following a referendum, the Swiss constitution was changed to include the statement that construction of minarets will be forbidden. There were 5 minarets in the whole of Switzerland, and this was seen as proof of the Islamicisation of Switzerland. What is going on? Now, the truth of the matter is that the extreme right parties are now moving for a European-wide referendum to ban the construction of minarets. And what we are seeing is what used to be the conspiracy theories of a powerful but marginalised lobby, the Euralians, and our journal Race and Class has written a very important critique of the theory of Euralia. These people, their ideas are now becoming mainstream. Hitler rose to power on the basis of a conspiracy theory against Jews. It's time for us to get really serious and to acknowledge the gathering storm. So what can we do? What we need to do is to launch a European civil rights movement, one that speaks up for progressive values. And this is what makes me sad, because if you see today, this racism comes in a liberal guise. It's the liberal intelligentsia, it's people who take a very dogmatic view of what secularism is. For them, secularism means no religion in public spaces. But secularism doesn't mean that. It means that the state does not identify itself with any religious message, but upholds the religious rights of minorities. Religious rights are civil rights. How did this come about? How have we allowed debate on progressive values to be taken over by the extreme right preachers of hate? How can this be when it is we here today who are people who believe in progress, who believe in civil rights? We need to fight on the basis of principles. As a woman, I too want to champion women's rights. I am for a woman's right to choose whether she wears a veil. Just as I'm against a state that forces a woman to wear a veil, I'm against a state that forces a woman to take it off. The French and the Belgians say a ban on full-face veil coverings is needed because Muslim husbands force their wives and daughters to wear it. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been around the anti-war movement and the anti-racist movement for quite a while now, and it's not crazy to say that it's Muslim women who are leading the fight. They're hardly subservient. This argument is infantilising Muslim women. It's infantilising and isolating them. And this is all part of the dehumanisation process I mentioned earlier. The fact that Kenza Dryder is with us today is proof that we here today do not accept this dehumanisation process. We respect her as a woman, and we want to hear her views. I understand that the English Defence League are having a march in Blackpool next week. And the march alleges that Muslim men are rapists and paedophiles. I think that we should be having a discussion about rape and sexual coercion, but one that admits these things cut across race, class, religion, and that sexual coercion does not just happen in poor neighbourhoods, but rich men in positions of power are also guilty of sexual coercion. I wonder whether our friends in the English Defence League and the people who call themselves patriots and warmongers, I wonder how they would fare in a discussion about the use of techniques of sexual humiliation and rape as an instrument of war. And while we're at it, let's acknowledge that Muslim male prisoners have been sexually humiliated and even raped in the course of the War on Terror, as we all know all too clearly from the photographs of Abu Ghraib and from the experience of former so-called enemy combatant Binyan Mohammed. We, migrant, refugee, Muslim, left women and men, Roma, Gypsy, All those who are different in an increasingly culturally conformist society, we are the alternative voices and the seed from which a new civil rights movement will grow. Thank you.